I'm getting sick of millionaire corporate executives who pose as social justice warriors to score points at the expense of real Canadian families. Today I'm going to do something about it, and I'd like your help. I'll tell you how in a minute, but first let me give you some background. Remember when Chiquita Banana said they wouldn't ship their fruit in trucks powered by oil sands oil? That was a few years ago. Then it was Earl's and A&W restaurants saying Canadian beef ranchers weren't humane enough for them. And now the phone company TELUS is lobbying for a carbon tax in Canada after they moved their own call centers to the third world where they don't have to pay a carbon tax or more than starvation wages. This is just corporate executives engaging in cheap virtue signaling, disrespecting their own customers and acting like political pundits instead of creating shareholder wealth. It's irritating, but mostly it's symbolic. But there is a case of politics infecting a great Canadian company that is much more important and much more dangerous than the symbolic cases I've mentioned so far, and it's where I'm drawing the line. It's the case of Suncor, one of the largest oil and gas companies in Canada, with a stock market value of more than $60 billion. Suncor is an amazing company with a brilliant history. They're one of the pioneers of oil sands technology. They've been working in the Fort McMurray area for 2 generations. Superb relations with Aboriginal communities, high-tech innovators. They operate some of the biggest oil sands mines in the region, and they're plowing $13 billion into a new oil sands mine called Fort Hills. They've been buying up other oil companies too, from Petro-Canada a few years back to Canadian Oil Sands more recently. According to their annual report, Suncor produces close to 500,000 barrels of oil sands oil every single day. That's more than the entire country of Australia produces, just for comparison. But something bad is happening over at Suncor that I noticed a while back, and I ignored it at first, but then I saw it again, and now I'm really worried about it. It's not from some made-up executive position like pretend vice president for social justice, like it is at TELUS. This is coming from Suncor's CEO himself, Steve Williams. He keeps saying, and I think he means it, that oil sands companies should stop producing oil. They should just leave it in the ground. He uses an environmentalist propaganda term for that. He says oil companies should strand their assets. They should waste them, abandon them, leave them in the ground. Here, let me quote from the Financial Post, just one of a dozen places he said this. Quote, "We are advocating in a modest way to work with government so that we can strand some of the oil in the oil sands," Suncor CEO Steve Williams said in a conference call with analysts Thursday to discuss the company's second quarter results, unquote. So he's not just musing about this to reporters. He's actually saying this to investors. He wants to, quote, strand some of the oil in the oil sands. He says it all the time now. He really doesn't sound much different from Tzipora Berman, the foreign-funded Greenpeace lobbyist, who's trying to stop the oil sands too. Listen to her.
We need to keep the majority of the carbon that we have left, the majority of the oil, the majority of the coal in the ground.
We're not going to be able to avoid runaway climate change unless we keep it in the ground. Have we solved our problem if we have a greener oil sands in Canada? No. Ultimately, we need to slow it down. We need to phase it out.
Now, we know why Berman would say that. She is paid by foreign interests to undermine Canada's oil and gas industry. It's not a secret. Her job is to defame oil and gas, especially the oil sands. Just one more clip from her.
That will lead to an enormous toxic legacy.
Left with the toxic legacy.
It's not a coincidence that Williams is now using Berman's language. His vice president serves on an NDP committee in Alberta that is co-chaired by Berman. Now, Steve Williams doesn't add on all the extra adjectives like his Greenpeace friends do, but his mission is still the same. Stop producing oil, and he's also for a carbon tax, of course.
So hi, Steve. Great to see you at Globe. Just wondering why you think it's important for businesses like Suncor to be working with government to tackle climate change.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be here. It's important because it's complicated. We want to get into the solution space. We want to make sure that smart things happen from here.
That's bizarre enough, like a chicken who supports Colonel Sanders, but at least there's an argument for the carbon tax. Just tell industry what the carbon tax will be, and then companies can figure out if they can still produce oil at that cost. Just give them some certainty. Okay, but abandoning oil on purpose is something completely different. He's saying that companies should choose to strand oil assets. So not as an unfortunate side effect of a high carbon tax or some other regulation. Steve Williams, the CEO of Suncor, actually positively wants to abandon oil as a cause in itself. It would be like if the CEO of McDonald's said, it's immoral to eat meat. No. If that's your view, quit working as the CEO of McDonald's and go join PETA, who hate meat and want to put McDonald's out of business. When the CEO of McDonald's starts saying things like that, you know you're dealing with an underminer who's destroying shareholder value and smearing an entire industry. But that is what Steve Williams is doing to the oil sands. I mean, obviously he still wants to produce some oil. He's spending $13 billion on that new Fort Hills oil sands mine that will take 3.3 billion barrels of oil out of the ground over 50 years. So, that's more oil than all the oil reserves in Sudan, by the way. It's huge. So why would Steve Williams be doing all this? He's defaming the industry. He's denormalizing the oil sands. Why is he doing that? Why is he literally registered as a lobbyist promoting taxes on oil and other kooky Greenpeace schemes? He's not just accepting all of this. He's bringing it on. He's leading it. Why? Part of it became clear when Williams was one of the 4 oil sands tycoons who ambushed the rest of the oil industry by standing next to Rachel Notley and environmental extremists last year to announce the carbon tax. Why would he do that? Why would he give his approval to a tax that will take billions of dollars out of the pockets of Albertans and of his own industry? Well, that's the thing, because he did a deal. Those gang of 4 tycoons convinced Notley that half the money from the carbon tax should come back to them, the big companies, in the form of subsidies. I'm serious. So they can actually make a profit off this carbon tax. But more importantly, Notley is bringing in a 100 megaton cap on oil sands emissions. So Suncor's Fort Hills project will be allowed. The existing 4 tycoons will be safe, but any smaller, newer competitors, well, Rachel Notley will ban them from setting up shop. She is outlawing his competition. Williams threw average taxpayers under the bus and threw the rest of the industry under the bus. But I guess it got him out of a pickle. It also suited Notley and her destroyers and the environmentalists standing next to him just fine. He's hoping that they eat him last. Okay, but that was a year ago. If the point of that sellout was to buy protection for Suncor and its shareholders, it's not working. Suncor is losing billions of dollars. It lost $570 million in the second quarter of 2016. Williams himself is personally banking $1 million a month as CEO, but his shareholders are losing $6 million a day. Alberta's unemployment rate is skyrocketing. The worst is yet to come with tax increases. Williams always said this would get new oil pipelines approved. Yeah, it hasn't. He made a massive bet, and he bet wrong. Suncor has been subsidizing anti-oil extremists for years, including NGOs like the Pembina Institute that literally have campaigned to destroy Suncor's shareholder investment value. Here's a page from the Pembina Institute's anti-oil sands campaign plan showing Suncor as one of their targets. And yet this is the Pembina Institute's own fundraising page showing fat donations to them by Suncor. That's insane. How is that in the interests of Suncor's shareholders, let alone anyone else in the oil patch? Why is Steve Williams going harder than ever in the wrong direction when things are worse than ever? Is it to try to get some corporate welfare from Rachel Notley or Justin Trudeau for Suncor's subsidized wind turbines? Is it to, get some government payment for stranding oil? Who knows? But there can be no good answer. Even some of the other gang of 4 tycoons think Williams has gone nuts. Brian Ferguson of Cenovus has said the idea of stranding assets is bizarre. So it's one thing when the kooky CEOs are at Earl's restaurants or TELUS. I mean, who cares really? But what about when the CEO of the most important oil sands company himself is anti-oil sands by his own admission? Then it's not just symbolic like it is at TELUS. Then it's dangerous. Then it's not enough just to start a petition. We have to start an intervention. And since no one else is, I will. The Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers hasn't kicked Steve Williams out of their club. Conservative politicians are afraid to criticize Williams for some reason. I don't know why. So who is going to stand up to the skipper of this giant ship who is enthusiastically steering the industry towards an iceberg? Well, I volunteer. I'm against this Manchurian CEO, this underminer. I want Suncor to be what it used to be, one of the oil sands pioneers, proud Canadians, proud of their company and their industry and their province. And I won't lie, hearing this sneering CEO in his foreign accent telling Canadians, and Canadians only, no OPEC countries, he's telling only Canadians to strand our energy assets while he makes $1 million a month off us, that makes me question his patriotism and loyalty, to be candid. Do you doubt that Steve Williams lives in a high-carbon mansion with a high-carbon vacation home, a high-carbon vehicle, and that he only flies on private jets or first class, while telling us to pay carbon taxes and to strand our oil resources? So what can we do? Well, we can do some things. We can have a petition. We can do fun things. And I'm going to outline some of them in future videos. Things like getting grassroots Canadians involved, even basic journalism with people on the street, including Suncor's own workers, especially those in the Fort Mac area, not just the suits in Calgary. What do Suncor workers think of their mad king and his plan to strand oil along with Greenpeace? We're going to ask them. I'm not going to give all the details away just yet. I don't want to lose the element of surprise, but I want to go one step further than just sound and fury and petitions. So today I bought a share in Suncor. I'm an owner of the company now. Steve Williams works for me now. And I'm going to take a page out of Greenpeace's playbook. I'm going to become a shareholder activist. Nothing destructive, nothing negative. The opposite, actually. We want to save Suncor from the anti-oil crony capitalist who's running it now. That's my whole point. Williams is violating his fiduciary duty to shareholders by talking down oil and gas, by musing about stranding oil. He may also be violating the terms of his oil sands leases. He doesn't own the oil, the people of Alberta do, and his leases require him to operate them, not waste them. He's truly a Greenpeace fanatic, except that he's making $12 million a year and developing a $3.3 billion oil sands mine. So either he's a liar or a madman or simply someone too clever by half. But Williams' leadership just cost shareholders $570 million in 90 days. And I'm a shareholder now, and I don't like it. I think we can build a very detailed case against his scheme to strand oil through videos like this one, through ads, through opinion columns in newspapers, including financial papers. But not just to the public now. Like I say, I'm a shareholder now. I have my rights now. I'm going to start with a professional, smart, well-footnoted letter to all Suncor directors, and to every stock market analyst who covers Suncor, and to every journalist who reports on Suncor in their beat, and to every regulator, maybe to every director of every institutional investor that owns stock in New York and Frankfurt and London. So maybe 500 copies of that letter, not a political letter, not an editorial letter, just a letter that asks the question, is this bizarre campaign to strand oil sands assets really in the fiduciary interests of Suncor shareholders? And with the advice of legal experts, I want to do things from the inside, like lefty shareholder activists do. Again, I'm not going to show you all my cards right now. You can imagine it would involve reaching out to shareholders who have more clout than me with my one share. It might even, just brainstorming here, involve attending their annual shareholders meeting and asking a question of the Mad King himself. There's a lot to do here. It's going to take time. It's going to take months, maybe years. But I've taken the first step. I've bought Suncor stock. This isn't about attacking Suncor. It's about taking it back. It's about saving it. Will you help me? Here's how. Number one, sign my petition to Steve Williams to live up to his fiduciary duty and stop destroying shareholder value with his stranding plan. You can click here, go to our website. I've come up with a good one called strandsteve.com. Sign our petition, and if you are a Suncor shareholder like me, sign up so I can communicate directly with you in the future as our plan unfolds. Number two, we're going to do this on the cheap. I don't make $12 million a year like Williams does, but we need to hire a legal expert in shareholder activism to help us make maximum use of the law, to flex our muscles, to force important questions to a vote, even to flush out Williams and his secret dealings with Rachel Notley and Greenpeace that are contrary to his fiduciary responsibilities. I have a good idea of what to do, but if we spent a few $1,000s on a corporate lawyer, I think we'd be far more effective. If you can help chip in to cover that cost, please do. You can do that right there on the page strandsteve.com. I'll keep you posted as we develop our plans. We'll do it all in the court of public opinion, through journalism, through street activism, and also in boardrooms and shareholders meetings. We'll make our case. Suncor is a great company, but its CEO is talking crazy talk, and someone has to call him out for it. And that's you and me, my friends. We'll have more to say, including to Suncor employees and contractors who don't like this great company being hijacked by a social justice warrior CEO. Thanks for your support. Please visit strandsteve.com. I say we fight back. Visit strandsteve.com. Let's save Suncor from their mad king CEO.